Your Seattle Seahawks took care of business today at home. This was a game that we thought we had to come out and win. We thought we should win. You got a battered and bruised Dolphin team coming in with a backup quarterback, and you're at home, and you're starting 2-0, and you feel like this is a game you should take. But as we've seen in the NFL just this past Sunday, anything can happen, and every opponent is a dangerous one and never easy to necessarily put down. But that is what the Seahawks did today, winning 24-3 in a game that the defense showed we're not going to take a long period of time to get this Mike Macdonald defense onboarded, to understand some of the ins and outs. Is it perfected yet? Do they understand everything to the nth degree? No. But is it starting out so hot, an indication of how good he is in getting this scheme across? You were going from one end of the scale to the other end of the scale in the type of defense you were working as far as from a complication standpoint. And right now, this defense seems to have bridged a lot of that territory. They seem to have crossed over a lot of that landscape, getting to the other end of it, as to come out through the first 3 games and be this dominant. Not good, not, hey, we're seeing flashes, dominant. And that is what you got to see today, was a dominant performance from this defense. 6 sacks, 7 tackle for losses, 12 quarterback hits. What do you want to point to that was good? It was good everywhere. Tackling, disciplined football, got sloppy on both sides. Some of it was the officiating. You would have thought that they thought they were 6-shooter guys. Have to be fast on the draw with those flags. Like every play, 22 flags in this game, and there's about 5 or 6 that end up getting declined, or both teams had a flag at once. It was a little ticky-tack out there. Let's just call it for what it was on that. But the defense was awesome in every way in their effort. Like I say, playing the run, playing the pass, creating pressure without having to necessarily blitz. When they did blitz, they were effective on that side of it. Another outstanding performance from a defense that has been good every single one of these games. It's worth noting that this isn't the most mightiest of tests. The Dolphins were coming in with a backup quarterback. They're spending all this money on their main quarterback. Now you have to go cheap at the backup position. That can go kind of wonky, as we saw today a little bit from them. It hurt them bad. They had other injuries as well, but we were walking in this with injuries as well, weren't we? Down Uchenna Nwosu, who coming into this year was your best pass rusher. Boy, it might be the guy that's overtaken him on that area now. But then you lost Leonard Williams basically after the first series to a rib injury, so he was out on the day. Then a couple of series later, you lose Byron Murphy, so you're down 3 of your better interior defensive linemen / edge linebacker, and yet the team didn't miss a beat. 3 points on the day given up, and that was in a lot of part, the 3 points given up, if I'm not mistaken, is on a turnover by the offense, who we're going to get to here in a second. But defense here, as I've said on both of the first 2 weeks, everyone can kind of be lauded. Your back end safeties, who came in as your 2 of your 6 highest graded safeties in the entire NFL, they're going to remain in that position coming off the back of this game. They tackled well, they covered well, only 140 yards passing from the Dolphins offense collectively in this game. Another stat that you see week in and week out, which is again going to point towards this next week, where you're going to look at the back end stats of your Seahawks, and it's going to show you as one of the best, if not the best team in the NFL at stopping the pass. That's what it comes down to most with that, and those guys are doing their job on the back end. Witherspoon and Reek Woolen may not be getting a lot of picks from those guys. I know Reek got a pick in week 1, but they're not being tested a lot either on that outside, and they're not allowing a lot of yardage either. Another game where they were infrequently targeted, held up when they did. Witherspoon had a PI penalty that was right on the line. You can go either way on that one as far as that goes, but they played outstanding football that whole secondary all the way through. Your linebackers, Dotson was lightning again. That guy's got such a great burst to the ball and nice natural instincts to get there fast. He was all over the place on the field, I thought, in this game again. Had a very key moment where he's coming as, I think, a run blitzer first. It turns out that they're not running the play on like a 3rd and short, which was large part set up to the fact that you had stopped them a couple times on 3rd and short runs. A little indication that maybe the run defense is coming a little bit more forward. Maybe it could just be that the Dolphins offensive line is that bad. We'll see in the future, but Dolphins say, hell with it. We can't run the ball here. Here comes Dotson shooting on in. He just puts a perfect hit, and as Mike Macdonald noted on his post-game press conference, great job by the defenders not only getting to the quarterback, but getting their hand from hitting on the head, getting the helmet-to-helmet stuff out of it, hitting them legally. And indeed, he put it right there in the rib in that little open spot there that quarterbacks have, or all players have, right there where it's a little exposed. You can hit that rib in there, and that knocked out Skylar Thompson for the game. But Dotson played a tremendous game on top of getting the sack there. I thought he's been an outstanding addition to this defense, and he shows up all over the football field. It just continues onwards, though, because you're down your 3 guys on that defensive line, your 2 interior defensive linemen, 1 of your edges, and then you get a guy like Derek Hall comes out and has the best game for him as a pro he's had in his career. I mean, I have to reread all the stats just to touch on all of these ones, because there's so many good ones of what he brought. But 5 tackles, 2 sacks, a tackle for loss, 4 quarterback hits from Derek Hall. He was a monster in this game. He was a guy supplying pressure, showing up in the run game, all around good defender. I know I'm saying this about everybody, but this is how you hold a team to 3 points, is you have a lot of defenders that are doing not only a collectively good job, but individually they're shoring up all of their assignments on that side of it too. And Mafe was right there with him, generating pressure. Mafe could easily have about 7 sacks this year. And it's not even that he can't close the play. He's just getting unlucky with quarterbacks just barely getting out of it, just flicking the ball to this guy, just, throwing it behind him, and there happens to be a running back there. It's not his fault on that side of it, but he's being outstanding. He is continuing to grow as a player and be a problem coming off that edge. He was again today really, 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 really good. The rest of the defensive line I thought was solid. You asked Jaron Reed and Hankins to play a few more snaps. Those guys had to hold on because you lost 2 of your defensive linemen early. You were going light in this game. Yet didn't miss a beat. Didn't waver an inch. A little bit of a run game started from the Dolphins early on in this game, but it quickly got taken away from them. They weren't able to lean back on the run game in this one at all. Dolphins ended up with 18 carries, 65 yards collectively. Some of it was you getting out ahead of them by 2 touchdowns in this game and being able to just lean on that running game and the way that they were going to go about it at that point. Some of it was just you were outstanding and getting up into there and making sure that you didn't allow them to lean on that point. You put the pressure back on Skylar Thompson, and as it showed, it was a little bit too much. You again got the pressure with just the front 4. You didn't need to bring a lot of blitzes. When you did bring blitzes, they were purposeful. There was one play where you blitzed with Witherspoon off the edge. Skylar caught the blitz, but it showed you how blitzing can still affect a quarterback, even if it's not getting home, even if there's not a free rusher. Where Skylar Thompson then had to take a couple steps to his left. He comes back to Tyreek Hill, and it's a little bit of a throw that's off the mark, doesn't quite get as much velocity on the throw, and that's because he's having to move to his left because the pressure is affecting him and forcing that throw. And there was a couple moments in this game I thought they did a good job where even if the pressure didn't get home, he's still not having to blitz a lot because he can rely on his front 4, even minus Uchenna, even minus the big cat, even minus Byron Murphy, still able to lean back and go, yeah, it doesn't matter. I can lean on this. It's no problem whatsoever. And I think you saw that again today. Nowhere to really even pick apart at all on this defense. They were just really good. The offense put them in some predicaments in this game with 2 interceptions on their other side of it. But to a man, I think you can point out just about everyone is having played really well. Tyrese Knight, the rookie, starting in for Jerome Baker, continued a solid performance. McDonald shows you a little bit of what he can bring to the table as far as helping his team out. Traditionally at this position, you might have seen a guy like Tyrese Knight start as a rookie, and coaching staff might have said, okay, he's playing the whole game, 24/7, all the snaps. But there were moments in this game where you were flexing out to sub packages, which I just love this thought process. You bring Trey Thomas out of the field, who maybe you feel a little bit better about in coverage than you do about Knight at this point, which is no indicator on Knight not being able to do it, just that you like what Thomas is bringing to play. And now in knowing passing situations, you have Thomas on the field and he makes up a couple plays in coverage. Look at that. I think this is great by McDonald, recognizing what do I have and how do I use it? If I have a part that can help me a little bit in here, what's this whole I need 3 down starter? Put a guy in a role. Okay, you're going to be our sub package role for this. When they come out here, we'll bring you out like that. And you just fit to this. You get a player working and studying just what he has to do on the field for those snaps and perfect it down. I think you got a little bit of that from Drake Thomas today. And shout out to those folks who have been very high on Drake Thomas. I thought he, again, flashed very well in coverage, made some plays on the ball. Not just there tight in coverage, but actually making a play on the ball. But everybody on that defense, hard to point anybody and say he didn't play a solid game. Brown gave 1 catch up to Tyreek Hill later on in the game, but I thought even he was pretty good out there. But again, too, they've done just a fantastic job this year as something that you talk about turning itself on its head from where it's been. Talk about something going from one place to 180 degrees different to another place. He's the 3rd down stops. Let's just throw the 4th down stops in it, shall we? Let's put it all together in one big bag here. We have seen it since preseason, haven't we? This was one of the things that we were hoping would be an issue that could be cleaned up coming along this year. Can you get better, McDonald, at getting us off the field more consistently? Too much bend, too much bend, too much bend. Maybe we don't break. A lot of times those Seahawks defenses would still break, but let's do less bend. Let's get more of these 3 and outs and get us off the football field and get this ball back to our offense. As last year, you had the Seahawks defense playing basically versus a lot of the rest of the NFL, almost a game and a half extra on the football field from the collective snaps that they played. So a place you wanted to see eliminated. Well, how does 2 for 15 on 3rd and 4th down collectively sound for the Seahawks defense today? 2 of 15. If you want one statistic that you can just point to and say, tell me one statistic, did we win or lose the game? You know, like the magical ball or mirror on the wall. There's your stat. You keep a team to 2 of 15 on 3rd and 4th down, you're going to probably be winning that game. And you did today. And this defense has been like this since day 1 of McDonald. Go back to preseason, all 3 of these games. Yes, there's going to be bigger tests at play coming down the road on this one, but they have been absolutely fantastically on point in every way we kind of want them. And the advantages McDonald brings seems to be bridging a big gap in overall performance of the team versus where we've seen them in recent years. It's great to see and just makes you that much more hopeful for this upcoming season. Offensively, Offensively speaking, it was a little more up and down. The team started out hot. They were so hot. Then it just started to kind of cool off, like you're turning the burner down. They just lost their footing a bit. Out the gate, get a field goal down there, get down for another touchdown drive. It's looking really good. Like maybe we're just going to steamroll this team. Dolphins will fall right apart. We'll just bend on them and lean them down and we'll be done. And then you get an interception down by the goal line. Right now, the big problem with this offense is it sort of started here to begin this year is if we're in the shadow of our own end zone, we got to be mighty careful because just bad stuff seems to happen down there when we're down inside like the 5-yard line. Just run like a gap power runs twice in a row or something. Just give us some breathing space because it's not been good when we're down there, especially with our pass protection today. And you did have an interception at that point. The defense was able to hold down, only give up the field goal. You came back then and were able to hit a deep throw down the field to DK Metcalf, which is really a play that's more than just, let's say, the broken coverage from last week with the Patriots. This is a play where, as Geno talked about in the post-game presser, you've got quarter, half, basically. So half field read over on the other side, meaning that safety's playing to the half field side, and then they have kind of a quarters combination to DK side of the field, meaning that you don't have a true blue safety dropping with depth deep, that they might be squeezing down on those routes a little bit, or as Geno talked about, sitting on that dig was the safety. And with Jalen, he's not actually supposed to be running up the field there. He's also running in more of a quarters. It's them collectively trying to sort of squish down on the shorter routes there because they're anticipating on first down that Geno's going to try to go somewhere short, which is not what he was doing, of course. And this is a nice little route that's got a few extra little details into it, as Geno does note here, where DK comes inside and bobs inside for a couple of steps, and then that's what draws the safety in. It's almost like the safety's been instructed, okay, if we run this route combination against this team, they're going to probably try to run that dig there. So if you see DK start to take a couple steps inside of the dig, drive down on it, DK does that and then goes up. It's sort of like an inverse sluggo route almost, if you want to think like that. And DK gets the top taken off. Geno puts a great throw on him, touchdown. You're up by 2 touchdowns, and you could kind of a little bit lean, I think, on the Dolphins at that point, play a little bit with some house money through the rest of the game, though then at that point the house money didn't help you offensively because it just all completely kind of collapsed for about 4 or 5 straight drives where they just were not able to do anything. It just was out of sorts. It was sloppy. The penalty situation was bad. Yes, there was some ticky-tackness from the officials in this game, but there was also legit penalties that were just bad penalties. Bradford is struggling tremendously up front. Too many quarterback hit stills, too many sacks. Geno Smith played a great game, but the offensive line continues to be the biggest problem on this team, and you're looking for the signs it'll come together, and there are some little spots to see bright spots here, starting out with that 17 points and the final drive and getting the run game in at the end, and those were good, but holy hell, is it brutal sometimes with this offensive line. And it's just everybody across the board at times will take their chances. Bradford really struggled this week, but you have Connor Williams has a hold where he just gets whooped right off the snap. You have Cross who had come into this game, I think one of the few left tackles in the sport that hadn't given up, I think, even a pressure, gives up a sack around the edge to Seiler, more of a defensive tackle playing edge, just gets right around Cross and just kind of push-pull move on him. He gets taken. Everyone had a bit of a rough day. Maybe Stone Forsythe was one of the guys that was the solid guys on there, ironically enough. But even a play like a sack early on where you can see how Grubb's trying to adjust with this offensive line, but how it's still difficult to even work through those adjustments. So an early sack on Geno Smith. Traditionally, you're going to have your left guard matching up one-on-one with a 3-tech, and then you're going to provide your center help over to the right guard. In this game, early on in that sack, instead, you're sliding over to Laken Tomlinson at the left guard position. Why? Because you're not trusting Laken Tomlinson as a pass protector right now. This then leaves Bradford one-on-one, who gets beat on the play for a sack. And this is where that push-pull goes, where both are having that problem, and it's hard to just support both at the same time. You can go kind of one or the other, but beyond that, it's the penalties, it's the quick pressures. The run game had much of nowhere to go out there today. They ended up with 23 carries, 100 yards. Got up to that spot of it, and it was really a final drive that helped them make it look like a lot better day than it really was, but there was no holes, early penetration, holding calls all over the place. I mean, you want to pick it, it was out there all over. It was ugly. I'm not going to lie, in those drives. There was just nowhere to go. Now, you had built up a lead. It's one of the nice parts about going, hey, yeah, maybe you can kind of win a game a little bit in the first and second quarter at times if you get up on a team and get that pressure, and especially a Miami team traveling on the road that did not want to throw the ball more than they ran the ball today, right? They want to come in here 35 attempts, 40 attempts on Seattle, ideally, and keep the ball out of Skyler's hand. You didn't allow them to do that because the defense was so good, and the offense did more than plenty to pull the win out. And what's good about this is they finally found their final footing there at the end on that one last drive. I think it was like a 9 or 10 play drive. Charbonnet actually had a couple holes on that drive and made something happen with it. Great stiff arm. He had a touchdown run near the end there where it was getting trash compacted there, and he just sort of was able to just kind of nudge his way through the crack, get back up to speed, and go get the touchdown. Great way to finish his day. Even McIntosh ran over a guy there at the end for a little little just extra exclamation point. They put up 370 yards of offense, and you go, look, you guys can do better. As Geno said, I'm mad about how I played. I can do better. Geno was fantastic in this game, to my opinion. Again, guy continues to have the same issues that are there on a weekly basis. What are those issues? Lack of consistent running game, pass protection that doesn't hold up. What does he have this year that's going to help him that he hasn't had in prior years? Because as I said, it's more of a collective, like 6 things that were holding him back before, including the thing I just talked about a second ago, being you have a defense that would at times live on the football field in prior years. They're not doing that now, giving him more opportunities and chances. But I think you've got a smart offensive coordinator. I think Grubb's still finding his ways, and that he's still having the ups and downs a little bit in the play calling aspect of it too. But I think it's a step forward from where it had been, especially some of the pre-snap motion. And as you saw today, the willingness to attack the middle of the football field, because that's how you really got to me on the Miami defense. You have the Moss play with DK, grabbing it over the top of Jalen Ramsey early, which was a great play and shows you DK can do that. You have them taking the top off the defense, but I thought a lot of where you lived in the passing attack on this day was having your offensive players sitting down in the zone. And Miami would try to trust their front four. They would try to drop all those people back into coverage, and then you just let your receivers kind of find those spots. Noah Fant had his best day of the year so far. He was very consistent as that security blanket. If Geno saw a blitz at times, you just felt like he was going to go back to Noah, and Noah's just going to sit down perfectly and read it the same way. But Tyler, JSN, nobody was having a high volume day necessarily. It's just Geno did a good job of really working the ball all around the football field, but good job to attack the middle of the football field, something that's a little bit more newer this year, and the emphasis put on that maybe perhaps for the Seahawks team. And it definitely was where you were able to find some footing offensively and able to hit some places in the passing attack. So offense, 370 yards, did just enough. Receivers were good, caught everything that was thrown their way. Still don't see a lot of fly sweeps, only a very couple bubble screens. You throw one to Tyler, not sure why you're throwing bubble screens out to Tyler Lockett. I think we've already tried that before. It's not really his game, and he had a pretty solid day, but everybody did their job on what you'd want from them to be done there on that. And Charbonnet had a tough sledding, found some room at the end. Offense did enough, but hey, you say 400 yards total in offense, and you can easily see where there's more here for them to take advantage of, especially if they can find a little bit more mid-game consistency. But you're scoring points, you're getting enough done. You won 24-3, you're in victory formation at the end of the game. It's all wonderful. Special teams did all right. Dixon early on kicked a punt a little bit too far, didn't get quite the height, got too much of a straight line trajectory, allowed a little bit of a bigger return, but aside from that, he was outstanding on all of the rest of his punts. Myers missed his first kick of the year, but it was good for him to see him get that first kick. It was just nice to get right out in front of them, 3 points on the board on that first drive, and start that ball rolling of trying to kind of lean on this opponent who you knew was walking into it with a little bit of a limp. You know, their finger might be broken, so you just let's just already start from the jump, lean on him. Big kick there by Myers, who I think had to kick like a 56-yarder on that. Not a quick, easy kick there, but did make the rest of his extra points. So you come out the win. You're 3-0. Still room for improvement. You hope you're going to get back the guys you got as far as on the injury front. We'll see what goes on with the Big Cat and Byron Murphy are the main ones you feel most worried about, but feels good to start off 3-0. And there's not a lot of times in franchise history we've been 3-0. So keep in mind too, from a historical perspective of 50 years as an organization, that you don't tend to be here much. It's hard to do this in the NFL. People will look at this game and there'll be some Seahawks fans that are going to say, well, I mean, look at those 3 opponents. Of course you should be 3-0. Hey, this is a new coaching staff onboarding 2 new schemes, taking you from some of the most simplified concepts on both sides of the ball to some of the most complicated. And in large part, they're not missing a beat. That to me is got to be taken into account every bit as much if you're going to take into that, well, weakling opponent kind of thing. It's a fair point. I ain't saying that that's not something that's aided us, and I'll certainly note it, but we got to note the rest as well. And Geno Smith continues to play awesome football, continues to deserve to be lauded. He played a great game today, almost 300 yards passing again, and those 2 interceptions. One happening when he's instantaneously under a pass rush. Another where you've got a Calais Campbell throwing Bradford aside and then getting his freaking giant 6'7", 39-inch long arms up in the air and tipping the ball up in the air, but it's quick pressure again. He's having to deal with that all the time, the quick pressure. It's hard to play the quarterback position that way and without a running game, and yet Geno doesn't miss a beat. He continues to general this thing in the right fashion. All of that control at the line of scrimmage we saw from last week was again in play this week, and he continues to play, to me, like a top 5 quarterback in this sport. And great to see Geno doing what he was able to do, and even on a day where it wasn't all perfect or right, I think he did just fine on his side of it, and it's hard to play the quarterback position as well as he is when you're dealing this much. Go look around the NFL at quarterbacks that aren't putting any points on the board over the course of a game, and go look at their pass protection and see how they're failing under that environment. See how they're not making that throw on the run. See how they're not breaking out of the pocket. See how they're not checking protections before the snap, making sure everything is in place. And that's a part of how Geno has been a difference maker this year, and will continue to be so. Have the Seahawks benefited from an easier schedule to start this year off for some of the other teams in the NFL? Probably. Was this Dolphins team coming into this game as a walking wounded unit, battered and bruised and barely hanging on? I don't know. We'll see on that one. The Seahawks still took care of business and did so resoundingly. And this is still a sport, maybe above all else, that is ultimately about parity. On any given Sunday, anybody can fall. Just look at how few teams are left remaining that are still actually 3-0, including your Seahawks. Hell, just look at the Seahawks history. We're only 5 times have we started out 3-0 before. And one of those times, you went to the Super Bowl and you won the whole damn thing. So who knows? Maybe lightning can strike twice in the same place. It does feel like watching this team that they haven't even begun to hit on all cylinders. It does feel like they're just warming up. Look out, NFL, once that happens. My name is Brandon Kay, and this is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.